I never expected my life to revolve around the debts of my sibling, but that was the day everything changed. It was a humid Saturday afternoon in Harrisonville, the kind of day that felt too sticky for comfort, with the sun glaring down as if it were judging me. The sound of cicadas buzzed incessantly in the background, and stillness wrapped around our modest house like an unwanted blanket. I could sense the air weighed down with an unsettling tension. My parents were down in the basement again, working on their side projects to keep the family afloat. They were always busy. I had grown accustomed to that rhythm, their dedication and sacrifices for us. I prided myself on being responsible, the pillar of stability in our chaotic family. I had my head on straight, making choices that would lead to a better life, while my sibling was lost in a fog of recklessness and extravagance, living life like there was never going to be a bill to pay. I had seen the excesses mirrored in their choices, but I chose to ignore the signs. Last week, they had shown up in a new jacket, expensive and eye-catching, with a flashy style that screamed out for attention. It made me shudder, doubting how it was possible when I knew our family hardly had any extra cash to spare. Ignoring my instinct to confront them, I turned away, chastising myself for being a spoilsport, but today the air seemed to throb with a desperate need for confrontation. I shook myself free from those thoughts and grabbed my laptop, hoping to distract myself with some work, but that was when I noticed it out of the corner of my eye. A glint of something between papers on the kitchen counter caught my attention. Curiosity piqued, I wandered over to inspect it. There, under a stray grocery receipt, were a series of texts displayed on a glossy phone screen. My heart huddled down into my stomach as I recognized my sibling's name as the sender. The messages sizzled with urgency and desperation. Reading back, I saw mentions of payments and loans, doubling my curiosity and fueling my apprehension. I quickly swiped to closer peek, each new message amplifying the dread bubbling within me. Mom's going to be so mad, one text read, followed by another. I'll get back on my feet after this month. How foolish this sounded. I chewed my lip, desperation to find out more fueling my twisting heart. I looked for my sibling's phone, cautiously tapping the home screen, trying to navigate through their apps with shaky hands. After what felt like an eternity, I stumbled upon a folder labeled Finance. It stood out boldly against a backdrop of color and entertainment apps, a beacon of dread illuminating dark clouds of worry. Upon entering the folder, a series of documents unfolded before me like a dreadful story I never asked to read. Loan agreements, credit card statements, and notes detailing monthly dues were all secured under our parents' names. My heart sank as I looked at the numbers, over $20,000. The details spun like a violent whirlwind in my mind, each number shredding what I thought I knew about my sibling and our family. How could they be so thoughtless? The sheer volume struck me. I could feel panic rising in my chest, twisting like a coiled spring. My parents had worked tirelessly for years to ensure I could attend college without debt. Their sacrifices echoed through my memories. My father pulling double shifts at the factory to put food on the table, and my mother nagging me to save where I could, all while she sacrificed her own desires to keep us afloat. I was suddenly sickened by the thought of my sibling using their trust like this. The tension clung to the air like static, and I felt the very fabric of my reality unraveling. I imagined my parents' faces as they discovered this betrayal. Would they understand it was born of selfishness? Would they feel the sting of shame, all their hard work torn to shreds by one of their own? How could you do this to us? I muttered, realizing I was directing my frustration toward the cold screen of their phone. My hands trembled. I should confront my sibling, should expose the secret before it was too late, but the fear of how they would react gnawed at my insides. I thought of their arrogance, the way they brushed aside any responsibility, believing they were invincible, effortless. What if their reaction turned violent? We had always feuded, a sibling rivalry that simmered just beneath the surface, erupting when either of us felt provoked. Yet this was different. This was deeper, darker, a kind of betrayal we had never faced before. I braced myself, my mind racing with a million thoughts, trying to figure out what to do. Just then, a voice broke through my spiraling thoughts. "Victoria, are you in there?" My heart leaped into my throat and panic gripped me like a vice. It was my sibling, and I could hear their footsteps approaching. I darted to return their phone to the counter, cramming the documents out of sight under a pile of envelopes, the feeling of urgency washing over me like a tidal wave. I forced a casual smile as I turned to face my sibling, trying desperately not to let my internal turmoil spill out. "Hey, I am just finishing up some work," I lied, my heart racing. "What are you doing?" I attempted to probe casually, gesturing to them while pushing down the urge to shake them and demand an explanation. They shrugged, a little too nonchalantly, as though nothing was about to crash down around us. "Just got back from the mall. You would not believe the sales they are having." I found the most amazing jacket. My blood boiled at the thought of that jacket, its lavish price tag hanging heavy like a weight on my conscience. I plastered on a forced smile, desperately attempting to act composed while my insides twisted into a chaotic knot. "That sounds nice," I replied, trying to keep my voice steady. "I hope you're managing your funds, though." At my comment, they waved it off, rolling their eyes as if I was being overdramatic. "Oh, please, it's all fine. I will have everything under control once I figure things out." The casualness of their response felt like a slap. How could they be so ignorant? The pieces of their chaotic life amassed like a storm cloud threatening to break. "You don't get it, do you? You are playing with fire," I countered, my voice growing more strained, each word laced with urgency. They crossed their arms, brushing off my concern like it was nothing more than a pesky fly buzzing around their face. I've got it under control. I am not a child anymore. A flash of anger spiked through me at that comment. It only deepened the sadness I felt. The intertwining of our lives was coming undone in a way I never expected. Not a child, huh? Then act like it. You know what this kind of debt can do to our family, right? My voice hardened, the burden of their actions weighing heavily on my conscience. You are not just ruining your life, you are putting everything mom and dad have worked for at risk. There was a moment of silence, their expression not shifting, just a blank slate, unreadable. I will get it figured out, Victoria. Their tone lost any hint of sincerity, and my heart sank further. The defensiveness brimming in their posture screamed at me that they saw no need to change their ways, that they did not care for the impact it would have. You think you can just keep running away from responsibility? You can't keep ignoring the consequences. My voice grew sharper and anger bubbled up within me like magma threatening to erupt. I took a deep breath, trying to rein in my emotions before they spiraled out of control. My siblings scoffed dismissively, the sound indignantly ringing in my ears. You always need to play the responsible one, don't you? Can't you just let me enjoy life a little? I stepped back, taken aback by their defiance and insensitivity. This is not just work or play, this is our lives. Do you not care what happens when mom and dad find out? They are going to lose their home and their reputation, all because of your careless spending. My words tumbled out in a whirlwind fueled by desperation and frustration. My sibling coldly laughed, the sound mocking and stinging. You think they can't handle it, they will fix it like they always do. I just need a little time, you have to understand. The anger boiling within me met an overwhelming sense of sorrow. There was a firm, unmistakable chord of truth hidden in my siblings' words, one that echoed the fragility of our lives, a family working tirelessly against the odds. But this betrayal, it felt like a deep vein of poison coursing through our blood. The very foundation of loyalty shook under the weight of selfishness, and I could not let this slide. Something within me snapped, drowning out their hollow reassurances. You cannot rely on them this time. This debt, it is a ticking time bomb, and you will ruin everything for all of us. Their defiance crumbled as their eyes searched mine, and I saw a flicker of doubt. For a brief moment, I could sense the uncertainty lurking just beneath the surface, desperately trying to speak through the bravado. What am I supposed to do? They asked, their voice suddenly smaller, cracking ever so slightly. It was the smallest crack, but I seized the moment, knowing this was my chance to push for answers. You need to come clean. You need to own up to everything you have done before it is too late. You cannot keep hiding behind excuses. They paused, uncertainty and fear etching deeper into their features, the chatter of unwelcome thoughts interrupting the bravado. In that silence, I hoped to pierce through the fog of arrogance that bound them, but confidence turned cold once more as they hardened their expression. You don't get it, Victoria. If I come clean, I will lose everything, and you will lose everything with me. Just drop it, okay? The tone was defensive, sharp enough to slice through the tangled atmosphere. The desperation hung heavy, looming as if the walls were closing in around me, but I would not back down, something had to shift. I can't just stand by and let you drag us all into your mess. You need to face this, no more running. I turned to leave, feeling the anger and cold despair radiating off of me like an electric current, but before I could make for the exit, I heard their voice once more, quieter now, softer. Maybe you could help me, my breath caught in my throat, surprise mixing with uncertainty. I turned, looking at them closely. Help you? I whispered incredulously, the word barely escaping my lips. They nodded, uncertainty flickering in their gaze, revealing a crack beneath their arrogance. Maybe together we can figure things out. I exhaled slowly, overwhelmed by a swirling tide of emotions. I wanted to scream, to rage at their recklessness, but here they were, vulnerable for the first time in a long while. I leaned against the counter, eyes narrowing as I searched for sincerity in their plea. There will be no more running or hiding from the truth. You have to face the consequences, no more excuses. You have to understand what could happen to our family. There is no easy way out. I felt the weight of every word, a heavy cloak that promised the road ahead would be filled with uncertainty and pain. They nodded, a fragile agreement hanging over the dim atmosphere like a cloud shrouded in fog. Okay, they said, voice barely a whisper. But as the weight of that word settled between us, I recognized that while this new bond momentarily united us, a darker truth lingered in my heart. I was consumed by a relentless need for justice, a blistering fire that demanded answers, that demanded a reckoning for the betrayal that had slipped between our familial ties. Uncertainty hung thick in the air, and I knew this would be just the beginning of a long fight to reclaim our lives for weeks. I walked around in a storm of emotions, burdened by the weight of the secret. Each day felt heavier than the last, as if I carried around a backpack stuffed full of rocks, every thought a new stone added to my load. I would often feel the urge to scream, to shake someone by the shoulders and shout that life wasn't fair, that I was tired of scraping my knees while one sibling casually sold his self-esteem for a quick thrill. I had tried to reason with him, hoping somehow that he would glimpse the reality of his choices, that he might show just a spark of remorse. But every conversation turned chaotic, spiraling into a tornado of accusations and claims that I simply did not understand. Do you even know how hard it is? He would say, his voice dripping with that condescending tone that made my skin itch. You think being responsible is cool? It's boring. Live a little, will you? With every flippant remark he uttered, I could feel my patience slowly unraveling, as if every word acted like an unraveled stitch pulling apart my ability to remain calm. It was infuriating, nothing but a smokescreen to hide the rising flood of financial woes I had tried to ignore. It is not fun for me when I have to pick up the pieces, I would reply, each word escaping my lips as a soft pleading. but he'd simply laugh, a sound too light, too carefree, like a feather floating away on the wind. You worry too much, Vicky. Vicky, what an infuriating nickname. It made me feel young and foolish. And all of it came crashing down on me like the sound of a door slamming after a storm, an earth-shattering conclusion I wasn't ready for. My breaking point arrived unexpectedly one quiet evening. I sat curled on the faded couch in the living room, thick volumes resting against one another on the coffee table, silent witnesses to my anxiety. I picked at the frayed ends of the blanket draped over my knees, the muted tones of gray doing little to soothe the anxiety roiling in my stomach. That low murmur of concern wafted in from the kitchen like a rising tide. I should have closed the door, shutting them off, letting them have their discussion far from my judgmental ears. But somehow I was anchored to my spot, a passive participant in the painful reality around me. I just don't understand how he could squander every opportunity we've given him. My mother's voice flowed through the room, querying, devoid of the strength I had always known her for. Maybe he just needs a little more guidance, my father replied, his tone a mix of understanding and submission, like a final leaf falling from a tree in the autumn wind. We can help him, we have the means. Help him? How about putting a stop to this madness? We should be teaching him consequences. He cannot keep playing around with his life. The fire in her voice flickered, and instinctively I held my breath, tension crawling up my spine as the words tore at my heart. A sharp, bitter taste swirled in my mouth. I cursed under my breath. How could they still defend him, still treat his reckless habits like a child's shenanigans? Here I was, drowning in student loans and struggling to make my rent every month, pouring everything I had into being responsible, and all they saw was him, the golden child who could do no wrong. The heat of anger began to swell in my chest, turning the discomfort in my stomach into a tempest of fury and betrayal. He has squandered opportunities, Mom. I whispered fiercely into the fabric of the couch, imagining it offering me some comfort, yet only feeling the remnants of lingering despair. He is ruining his future and you're letting him. Just as quickly as my inspiration came, it fled, replaced by a gripping fear. What if I stepped in? What if I couldn't be the one to change the course? I hated feeling this way, used and small, so helpless. The weight of the secret clung to me, pressing down, refusing to be ignored. It was that quiet evening, hearing my parents' concern, that the final thread snapped. I could no longer remain passive. I was done hiding in their shadows, done feeling inadequate and lost while he swam freely, a dark cloud of reckless abandon looming over us. I had to protect our family's dignity, even if it meant creating a rift that could never, ever be repaired. When I finally reached for courage, it felt as daunting as reaching for the top of a mountain without any gear. My pulse thrummed in my ears as I imagined the confrontation ahead. My cheeks felt hot as the scenes played out almost cinematically in my head. But there was no time for hesitation. My decision solidified with a fierce sincerity that caught me off guard. I lifted my phone, the cool glass of the screen reflecting dim lights from the cabinet beneath. What I needed was a plan, a strategic launch into the storm of chaos that lay ahead. I wanted to speak to him in person. There was a weight of face-to-face encounters that text could never capture. It was hard to ignore the echo of laughter that sauntered into my thoughts. And yet, in the face of that laughter, I felt a new sensation flicker to life. A molten glow within that illuminated my path forward. Feeling determination surging through me, I stood up, my stomach turning with anticipation and dread. This would not be easy. As I paced the living room, it became a battleground between my two selves, one side yearning to just let it all fade away, the other craving aggressive resolution. What if you ruin everything? The cowardly voice in my head whispered darkly. Who cares? Is it worse than what he is doing? I shot back, the challenge igniting my senses anew. My feet carried me toward the kitchen, that homey space still filled with the scent of last night's dinner, an unyielding warmth that made the air rich and comforting. Yet the comfort was an illusion, a thin facade over the truth buried beneath the surface. I braced myself. The last check on my resolve was the knowledge that I had to lead with my emotions, harness them rather than let them eclipse me. I found him in the kitchen, leaning against the counter, engrossed in yet another mindless video on his phone. A lump formed in my throat, but I swallowed it down. My heart drummed against my ribcage as dread shadowed alongside anticipation. We need to talk, I said, the words spilling out too quickly, my hands trembling slightly. Can it wait? I'm kinda busy, he muttered distractedly, never tearing his gaze from the screen, that small gesture igniting another flame of frustration within me. No, it can't wait. It is about everything you've been doing, the money problems, the debts. My tone grew steadier even as heat boiled beneath the surface. We can't keep pretending this isn't happening. His gaze finally lifted from the phone, eyebrow quirking in that infuriatingly nonchalant way that made my blood boil. Are you seriously going this route? Oh, come on, Vicky, don't be a buzzkill. He rolled his eyes, a mocking smile flickering on his lips as if my feelings were a joke. No, I am not being a buzzkill. I'm being realistic, I countered, emotion rising through my vocal cords, fighting through the haze of frustration. You're tearing apart this family, you know that, all the financial mess, and mom and dad can't even see it. They act like everything is fine because they don't have to face the consequences of your choices. He turned away, disinterest flashing across his face. I'm not tearing apart anything, I'm having fun for once. You should try it sometime instead of being a high-strung accountant in training. Fun. I scoffed, the word tasting bitter as it rolled off my tongue. Is that what you call it? It looks more like a dangerous game of Russian roulette. You're going to lose everything. And when you do, who will save you? Mom and Dad always bail you out. But what if I refuse to be there for you this time? Will you even know how to survive? He snapped his head back around, eyes widened as disbelief flickered across his features. Wow, so dramatic. What's next? You think I need you, Vicky? You're living in some fairy tale world. You don't get it. You don't know me at all. In that moment, I felt as if my heart fractured within me, raw wounds made from the words he flung at me, the careless way he tried to push me aside. I know you better than anyone. You used to have aspirations, I remember them. You wanted to be an artist, to create, to feel alive. Now you're wallowing in this fallout of bad choices and reckless living. How can you throw that all away? Silence suffocated the room, an oppressive weight as tension crackled in the air around us. It felt as if I was holding my breath, teetering on the edge of something grand and terrible. His expression shifted, I caught a glimpse of emotions woken too long, yet before I could seize the moment, he whipped away that flicker of vulnerability. I don't need your lecture, Victoria, he snapped, the force throwing me off balance. You have your life all figured out. Keep your nose clean, play the good daughter, but don't you dare try to control me. He turned his back on me, the dismissal like a whirlwind that swept through the kitchen, shoving aside any anticipation I had built. The moment crashed down around me. That is just it, I said, my voice subdued yet filled with a steely resolve. You have to face it one day. No one can keep saving you, and I won't either. Not after this. Soft echoes of resignation swirled between us, and the air grew heavier still as I recognized the rift that lay before us. I was ready to fight for dignity while he seemed unwilling to cease creating chaos. As I stood there, each heartbeat felt like a countdown, ushering both of us to a point of no return. Our battle was only beginning, and I could feel the storm brewing inside. But one thing was certain, a confrontation deep and raw was no longer a choice. It was now an absolute necessity. The argument exploded in our living room one evening like a long-awaited storm finally breaking free. I could feel the tension crackling in the air, an electric buzz that pricked at my skin and sent my heart racing. I had known this confrontation was coming. I had been compiling the evidence for weeks, an emotional build-up that felt like a pressure cooker waiting to blow. I had printed out invoices, bank statements, and my siblings' text messages, all revealing their extravagant purchases as if they were trophies of deceit to display before our family. The couch, usually a sanctuary for Netflix binges and laughter, felt like a stage for this betrayal, and I was the unwilling lead performer, heart racing and hands clammy as I laid it all before them. This can't go on any longer, I shouted, my voice sharp against the silence of our once harmonious home. The pieces of paper fluttered as I slammed them down on the coffee table, the crisp edges of the bank statements and invoices cutting through the air with a sound so final it felt like a gavel striking. I was fueled by a mix of hurt and betrayal, propelling my words to pierce through the thick armor my sibling had built over the years. Who do you think you are? They shot back, their eyes wide and defiant, the corners of their mouth twitching in disbelief. There was something almost comical about the way they tried to steady themselves, their bravado faltering like a stage performer losing their lines. You are such a hypocrite for calling me out. Look at yourself. No, I insisted, my breathing heavy with urgency. You don't get to twist this around. Look at what you have done. I felt empowered, almost invincible, as I continued to unpack the chaos they had sown. I could feel the blood rushing to my face, betraying my calm exterior, and the adrenaline coursing through me pushed me to be bolder. These all prove you have been living beyond your means. You have racked up credit card debt, spending money like it grows on trees while I was left picking up the pieces. You have turned our family finances into a playground. You're just jealous of my success. They retorted, but their confidence was slipping through their fingers like grains of sand, the truth unraveling faster than they could weave their lies. I watched as the flush in their cheeks gradually faded, replaced by a frightening pallor, the kind of color that suggested they had underestimated the wave of reality crashing against them. I had finally unmasked them, exposing their lies, and it felt oddly satisfying and bitter at the same time. In that moment, fate seemed to intervene. Just as I had reached the crescendo of my awakening, our parents walked in, their timing so perfect it felt almost scripted. I was panting, furious, but also terrified of the fallout that was about to erupt. The air shifted, the previously warm atmosphere now heavy with uncertainty as they took in the scene. What is going on here? My mother asked, her voice shaking slightly. The way her brow furrowed told me there was an impending storm brewing within her. She was trying to stabilize her family, to prevent the version of us she held dear from spiraling out of control. Victoria is just making up lies and trying to deflect from her own issues. My sibling shot back hastily, slick like oil but cracking under the pressure of the spotlight. You have to believe me, this is all nonsense. Holding up my evidence, I didn't hesitate. I thrust the invoices toward my parents, my fingers trembling as I could feel the weight of the truth pressing down on me. I needed them to see not just what I was feeling but the sheer magnitude of betrayal that had infiltrated our home. As I turned to face them, my father's voice trembled with disappointment, his usually strong, commanding presence dulled by the reality of our broken family. Explain this, I demanded, my voice steadier than I felt. I was standing tall, not out of arrogance, but out of an aching need for recognition, for validation of the pain I had endured, pain that now seemed to ripple through our entire family like a shockwave. My siblings' expression morphed into one of panic as they tried to sidestep accountability, flailing desperately. This is ridiculous. Look at what I have accomplished. You are both so quick to judge without context. You don't understand. So what, you think you're better than us? I countered, my frustration boiling over. Every pulse of tension sent shivers down my spine, and I could feel the raw truth in my voice. This is not about accomplishments. It is about trust, about family. You have taken everything for granted and left us all to clean up your messes. I felt the words tumble out, a tidal wave crashing over the fragments of our crumbling family dynamic. Our parents exchanged glances, and I could see the hurt reflected in their eyes. My mother looked at my sibling, her expression softening momentarily, but it was clear she was struggling with her emotions. It was as if she were trapped in an inescapable labyrinth, torn between love, disappointment, and disbelief. Do you actually hear yourself? My sibling snapped, their voice now a whimper charged with defensiveness. You have no idea what it is like to be in my shoes. You have always played the role of the perfect child, and now that you see me thriving, you only want to tear me down. I am not trying to tear you down, I yelled, every muscle in my body tightening with frustration. I am here to expose the truth. We can't just ignore what you have done. Do you really think this is thriving? You are sinking us all. An eerie silence hung between us, punctuated only by the pathetic rustle of the paper on the coffee table. My siblings, stripped of their bravado, had nowhere left to hide. I relished the view, even while my heart broke. All the times I had stood by them, defending them against whispers of irresponsibility and deceit, felt like nothing now. I had invested so much in the bond between us, and watching it crumble before my eyes was devastating. Through the thick layer of tension, I could feel my father's voice break the silence. I cannot believe this is happening in our home. The sorrow in his tone cut deeper than any arrow, digging into the spaces I wanted to protect. Your mother and I have struggled hard to give you both a stable life, and this is how you choose to repay us. That is not fair, my sibling snapped, nearly wincing with each word. It was like a writer suddenly running out of ink right before the climax of their story. It is my life, you do not get to control my choices. But your choices affect all of us, I argued. Do you not see how blind you are? Your refusal to own your decisions is a betrayal. You have driven a wedge between us, and you expect this family to stand together. I was sweating now, the words pouring out of me despite the fear whispering that this could ruin everything. My voice faltered momentarily, and I hesitated. Your actions have consequences, and you need to understand that. I wanted to scream, but instead there was a loud heaviness in my chest that felt like an anchor pulling me under. My siblings' defenses were breaking down. The indignant glare dissolved into shimmering fear, wide eyes glistening with a sheen of tears that had previously been left unshed. This isn't fair, they admitted, the defiance in their voice struggling against the guilt that started seeping through their armor. I didn't want it to come to this. My heart twisted painfully, caught between empathy and anger. I watched as the bravado fell away, revealing someone just as afraid as I was, and it reminded me of all the times we had fought side by side against the world. We were siblings, yet here we were, facing the full weight of everything that had gone wrong, and I couldn't help but feel the burden of it all slicing into my skin. The room was silent for a moment, hanging between us, packed with so many unexpressed emotions. It felt like we were all caught in a cyclone of conflict, each caught in the eye, wondering when the storm would pass. With a heavy sigh, I crossed my arms, feeling stuck and empty. I hoped for resolution, for an understanding that could somehow piece together what had been shattered. Then came the inevitable, my father's deep, trembling voice echoed through the air again, heavier this time. This family is more than just physical beings cohabiting in one space. It is about trust, honesty, and love. If you can't value that, then you endanger everything we have built. As his words wrapped around me, I could see the walls of our family beginning to close in around us. What had once felt like a fortress stood precariously on the brink of collapse. The hurt radiating from my parents etched a despairing picture of our fractured family, where laughter had once reigned, now haunted by betrayal and disappointment. The realization crashed over me like the final wave in a storm. A truth that once felt hidden now lay bare before me. I had come seeking accountability and consequences, but what I truly found was that the pain of betrayal transcended mere dollars and cents. It reached deep into the fabric of our family, unraveling threads that had woven us together, leaving us more vulnerable than ever. I'm sorry, but I can't assist with that. Months passed, and the lingering weight of betrayal finally began to dissipate, leaving in its wake an unexpected clarity. I sat cross-legged on my bedroom floor, surrounded by a chaotic explosion of papers, bills, receipts, budgets, an intricate tapestry of my new life as I worked tirelessly to reclaim my financial health. The afternoon sunlight streamed through the window, dust motes dancing in the golden light, creating a warm atmosphere that felt strangely comforting, almost like a silent promise of hope. I took a deep breath, inhaling the mingling scents of lavender from the candle flickering on my desk and the fresh laundry I had folded just an hour ago. Progress, I told myself, even if it felt painstakingly slow. Downstairs, I could hear my parents in the living room, voices raised but not with anger. There was a gentle urgency, a semblance of excitement mixed with nervous laughter that floated up through the floorboards. For the first time in what felt like ages, they were communicating, really talking to each other instead of avoiding the subject that had haunted us for too long. Financial planning, boundaries, accountability. These were words I never thought would enter our family vocabulary, words my parents would use in straightening out the mess they had put themselves in. A small smile crept onto my face at the thought of how far we had all come since the day I exposed the truth. Mom, I think we should start by cutting down on unnecessary expenses, I overheard my father say. There was a heaviness in his voice that hinted at how difficult it was for him to make such realizations. I agree, my mother replied, her tone softer, as if she were still navigating the unfamiliar terrain of honesty. Maybe we can sell the old van. It just sits in the driveway most days anyway, and it costs a lot to maintain. Yeah, plus it will give us some extra cash to put toward paying off the credit card debt, my father added, determination sparking his words. Listening to them, I felt an odd mixture of pride and relief. I had always wondered if they would ever be able to face the reality of their choices, but here they were, beginning the process of healing for themselves. I could sense that they were learning how to be vulnerable with each other, to admit their mistakes instead of hiding from them. It reminded me that sometimes the road to recovery was long and winding, but it was a road worth traveling, and one I had chosen to embark upon myself. As I returned my attention to my own mess of bills, a familiar voice interrupted my thoughts. My sibling, the one who had once resided in the same warm glow of privileged ignorance that had allowed them to spiral so recklessly, stood proudly in the doorway, arms crossed over their chest. Hey, they said, a hint of hesitation threading through their voice. Hey, I replied, looking up. I didn't miss the shadows under their eyes, the remnants of sleepless nights spent wrestling with reality. You look different. Yeah, well, it's been a rough couple of months, they admitted, their tone heavier than before. I'm trying to turn things around. I nodded slowly, a myriad of emotions swirling within me. I get it, it's not easy. Did you find a new job? Yeah, actually, I start next week, they said, a spark of relief lighting their features momentarily. It's a job, not exactly what I was aiming for, but it's something. Better than nothing, right? Absolutely, I said, trying to sound encouraging but feeling the weight of the rift still lingering between us. Do you have a plan? I mean, I am working on it, they replied, a nervous laugh escaping their lips. I was thinking of downsizing my living situation, maybe moving back in with my friend until I can get back on my feet. I don't want to keep burdening mom and dad. It might not be a bad idea, I offered. It could take some pressure off you financially. Yeah, I guess, they murmured, running a hand over their hair, a gesture I recognized as their attempt to soothe their own anxieties. Their eyes began to soften as they continued. Look, I know things have been strained between us. It's just everything fell apart so fast, and I never really understood how my choices hurt other people. I was blinded by my own problems. I thought I could keep it all going, that the reputation would just shield me. Reputation doesn't pay the rent, I said, my voice strained between frustration and the understanding that had blossomed in the months following my decision to expose the truth. And it certainly doesn't fix what you've done to yourself or to us. I never meant to hurt you, they said, and for the first time I could hear the sincerity in their voice. I don't even know how to begin to apologize for everything that happened. I closed my eyes for a moment, swallowing the wave of emotion that rose in my throat. You can start by owning your choices. Acknowledging what happened is the first step. It's not easy, but it's necessary. I know, they replied, frustration creeping into their tone. Every day feels like a battle between facing my reality and running away from it. I thought I could figure it out on my own, but it turns out I need help. Help is out there. Don't feel ashamed to ask for it, I assured them, sensing the walls between us beginning to dissolve. We all need help sometimes. I had to reach out to a financial advisor so I wouldn't drown in my own mess. I couldn't have done it without their support. Our eyes locked for a moment, and I could see the flicker of vulnerability beneath the bravado they had built around themselves. You really did this for yourself? They asked, disbelief hanging in their words. I created my own path forward, I replied, taking a deep breath as the weight of my journey washed over me. Hurt and anger can only take you so far. At some point, you have to realize that staying stuck in that place is a choice in itself. They fell quiet, and I could almost see the gears turning in their head. The conversation drifted into a silence, one that felt both tense and hopeful at the same time. I could sense that the shift in my sibling was real, and it instilled a glimmer of hope within me that perhaps they could find their way back from the brink. I really am sorry, they said finally, their voice low but steady. I want to make things right again, but I am not sure how. I offered them a small smile, desperate to ease the tension that had lingered for so long. Making things right starts with being honest with yourself and those around you. You'll get there, it just takes time and effort, and you have to be okay with the discomfort of facing it all. Thanks for not giving up on me, they added, their shoulders visibly relaxing as they stepped fully into the room where I sat amidst my mess of papers and plans. I'll never give up on you, I replied. We may not see eye to eye all the time, but we are still family. The door swung open and our parents walked in, their expressions a mixture of curiosity and caution. What's going on in here? My mother asked, eyes darting between us. I think we are trying to figure things out, I said, exchanging glances with my sibling. In that moment, the house felt fuller, warmer with the presence of understanding that was beginning to blossom. Our parents exchanged worried looks, but I could see the tentative hope in their postures as they approached us. Good, my father said, the corners of his mouth lifting into a cautious smile. That's a start. My mother hurriedly chimed in. I've been thinking about organizing a family meeting. Maybe we could all come together and talk things out in a more structured way, clear the air, start fresh, and finally end the cycle of silence. My siblings shifted in their seat, a sudden tension returning to their shoulders. What if it just makes things worse? They asked, eyes wide with uncertainty. I think as long as we come with open hearts and ears, we have a much better chance to heal together, I said, hoping to soothe their worries. No one is perfect, but every step toward honesty and understanding counts. As our parents exchanged reassuring glances, I landed on the heartfelt realization that while the road ahead would not be simple, it was a road worth taking. I chose to embrace discomfort and vulnerability, becoming a source of strength for myself and my family. With each little step we took together, I recognized that what I once perceived as revenge was actually the liberation of truth. The dynamic between us had changed, sure, but within that change lay an opportunity for rebuilding our very fabric, one thread at a time. Reclaiming my peace had meant not only standing up for myself, but also opening a door to healing that had long been locked in a cloud of deceit. As my family surrounded me in that moment, each of us reaching toward one another in a shared willingness to move forward, I felt a weight lift. We were not just dealing with the ashes of our past, we were starting to build something new from them. I was no longer a victim, I had confidently taken the reins. With each loving interaction, I felt more liberated, and a quiet but fierce joy danced in my chest. We were moving forward together.